Hello?
Hi, this is Congresswoman Lynn Jenkins at 202-225-6601. Right now I'm hosting a live conference call to discuss what Congress can do to help rebuild the American dream and help create economic growth and jobs for hardworking Kansas. As your representative in Congress, your thoughts are important to me. Please stay on the line to join in this call. Thank you.
Please hold while we connect you to your teleforum. The teleforum is currently in music hold and will start momentarily. If you would like to ask a question, press star 3 on your telephone keypad at any time during the event. Please note, this call may be monitored, recorded, or rebroadcast. Welcome to Teleforum. If you would like to ask a question during the event, press star 3 on your telephone keypad at any time. Thanks for joining us. We will begin shortly.
Good evening. This is Lynn Jenkins, your representative in Congress. Thank you for joining our call this evening. We like to get in touch with folks back home in Kansas just to let you all know what we've been working on here in Washington and to answer any questions that you might have. I usually answer questions for about an hour, but if you don't have the interest or the time to participate in the call, you can hang up anytime. But if you'd like to hang on the phone, you will have an opportunity to ask a question. All you have to do is press star 3 on your phone, and one of my staff members will get your name, and we'll get you in line to ask the question. That's star 3 if you'd like to ask a question. If you need to run off but would like to leave us a voice message before you do, all you have to do is press star 9 on your phone, and that will take you to our voicemail. Before we get started with your questions this evening, I just wanted to take an opportunity to mention the recent terrorist attack. That cowardly attack on innocent lives at the Manchester Arena last night is heinous, and some of the victims were teenagers and kids. And I've also been informed that the United Kingdom, just in the past couple hours, that they have changed their terror warning level to the highest that it's ever been, indicating another attack may be imminent. And at times, the United Kingdom has been a critical ally and component on the war on terror. America will continue to stand with our United Kingdom friends and help bring justice for those victims and their families. It is at times like this that they are not only our friends, but they're our family as well. Now then, I do want to take another minute to give you a quick update on what we've been working on here in Washington. Earlier this month, I think most of you are aware the House passed legislation to repeal and replace the Obamacare bill, honoring a campaign promise that House Republicans and the President made during the last election cycle. And contrary to what you may have read on the internet, this bill does not declare things like postpartum depression a pre-existing condition. In fact, the legislation keeps in place protections for pre-existing conditions, regardless of what they are. The bill also eliminates the individual mandate. We're moving towards a patient-centered healthcare system. We want all Americans to have affordable insurance that fits their needs. We just don't think the federal government should say it's illegal if you choose not to be covered. And I'm sure that there will be a lot of questions on the call this evening, so let me touch on a couple other issues as well. Again, this is Lynn Jenkins, your member of Congress. We're hosting a conference call this evening. If you would like to have a question to ask, just press star 3 on your phone, and one of my staff members will get your name and we'll put you in the queue to ask a question. If you need to run off, all you have to do is press star 9, and that would take you to our voicemail if you have a question you'd like to ask before you get off the phone. One of the things that I hear most often when I'm touring the district is that Washington is out of control with regulations, and far too often Washington doesn't look at or understand the impact that unreasonable and excessive regulation has on our company's ability to hire new employees, give them pay raises, or invest in new equipment. The last administration further complicated life for many Kansans with several 11th hour regulations as they were headed out the door. But thanks to the Congressional Review Act, we've been able to repeal over a dozen of those job-killing regulations. In fact, the President signed his 14th Congressional Review Act resolution last week. A couple quick reminders would be examples would be repealing the teacher preparation rule, which would have put a Washington-sized solution onto teacher evaluations and may have exacerbated the shortage of special education teachers. Another example would be repealing the federal contract blacklisting rule, which unjustly blocked businesses from federal contracts if they had been accused of labor violations but had not yet had a chance to defend the allegations. I know you won't hear often in the media that Congress is actually doing what the American people ask us to do here in Washington, but those are just a couple of examples of where I am trying to fulfill the promises that I made to my constituents. If you've just joined us, again, this is Lynn Jenkins, your representative in Congress. We're hosting a conference call for the next hour. If you have a question for us, all you have to do is press star 3 on your phone, and we'll get you in the queue to ask a question. If you don't have the interest or the time to hang on the phone, you can hang up anytime, or if you'd like to leave us a voice message before you hang up, you could press star 9 on your phone, and that will take you to the voicemail. Lastly, I'd just like to mention tax reform. I think most of you know I'm a CPA by profession. I see no greater need in Washington than reforming this broken tax code of ours. There's not a Kansan yet that I've talked to that believes our tax code is just fine the way it is. And last week, I had the opportunity on our committee to question small business owners on the administrative complexity of the code and its effect on our businesses. And in short, instead of growing wages and creating jobs, our code stunts growth with its endless pages of bureaucratic red tape and confusing loopholes. Folks from across this country made it loud and clear they want a tax code that is simple, fair, and will help them grow their businesses and support their families. That's why the Ways and Means Committee has made this comprehensive tax reform a top priority this year. And I'm still optimistic that we can get that done, and I look forward to any advice and counsel that you have to give me on those reforms. Again, this is Lynn Jenkins, your representative in Congress, hosting a conference call this evening. If you'd like to ask a question, just press star 3 on your phone and we'll get you in the queue to ask a question. If you need to hop off the phone, all you have to do is press star 9, and that would take you to our voicemail if you want to leave us a message before you take off. I'm also conducting just an informal poll of anyone that would like to participate in the poll this evening. This is the question. The Ways and Means Committee recently had 2 major hearings on tax reform. As we move forward, how do you think we should reform our code? Press 1 on your phone if you think we should reform the code to make it simpler and fairer as a means to cut taxes and reduce revenue to the federal government. Press 2 if you think we should reform the tax code to make it simpler and fairer, but only if it does not increase the national debt. Press 3 if you think we should keep the code as it is currently, and just press 4 if you're undecided. And with that, we'll turn it over to all of you and see what questions that you have. The first one is Kent. Kent, where are you calling from this evening?
Bleats, Kansas.
All right. Bleats, Kansas. What's your question this evening?
Do you know where Bleats is at?
I don't think I do.
Frankfort?
Frankfort County?
Frankfort, Kansas.
Marshall I know where Frankfort is.
Up the river, 4.5 miles.
Okay.
To the east. Little town of Vermillion?
Yes.
Yeah, Bleats, that's in between Vermillion and Frankfort, which is in between Frankfort and Centralia.
What's the population of Bleats?
Oh, it's probably, I don't know. I'm actually north on a farm. It's probably, I don't know, 20, maybe. It's not very big.
Put it on my list to swing by when I'm up that way.
It's about the only thing left is a co-op.
Is that right? Yeah, that unfortunately is the story we hear a lot in some of our rural communities.
Yeah, it's there's some young kids moved in and fixed up the old houses, kind of cleaned it up, the town, but it's not much. Why cannot the Democrats and the Republicans get along?
Yeah, it's the darndest thing. A couple things. I mean, it is true that America is divided right now, and Congress is a direct reflection of the American people. You know, we don't elect ourselves. You all elect us. And we have different worldviews, and I think everyone agrees on the problems. We just don't always necessarily agree on the solutions. But I will tell you, we've made some strides in finding ways to find some common ground. When I first got here, in 2009, you know, Democrats had control of the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office, and Republicans felt like they got run over. And then in 2010, the House had a big wave election, and the Republicans took over the House, and we spent a couple years just fighting with each other. But I will tell you, as a result of that, we started an organization on Capitol Hill called the No Labels Problem Solvers Caucus, where we invited, you know, everybody on Capitol Hill to join us, and we started with maybe a dozen, half Republicans, half Democrats, and we've grown to over 100 members, and our goal is, it's not rocket science, we have breakfast together.
Your response has been registered.
And we look for things that we can all agree on, Republicans and Democrats, House members, Senate members, and I think it's been productive. There was a day in Washington when Bob Dole was here. He tells me those stories of when members of Congress moved their families to Washington, and their kids went to school together, and they went to church together, and they socialized together. But those days are long gone of getting to know each other as human beings, not just as the majority or the minority party. Right now, everybody is expected to be home in their districts on weekends, so we kind of fly out when the gavel falls at the end of the week and fly back in at the beginning of the next week. And so this is a way for us to find a way around that, to get to know each other and to look for that common ground. I know it's not provocative, so that the press isn't ever going to cover it because we're not yelling and screaming at each other, and the press tends to cover events that get ratings up, and they're advertising money, and you know they're in the profit-making business, and so they don't cover groups like this. But there are some of us that are trying to work together. So you know we'll see what we can accomplish. There have been some successes, Kent, that come out of this group. We'll keep working to that end, okay?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I voted for Donald Trump. I followed him right from the start. And a big reason he was not a politician.
Yeah,
I just think, you know, I don't know what's happened to our politicians.
Yeah, I think that's why he got elected, is everyone was fed up with the status quo and they wanted something different, and that's what we got. So.
Well, the press, as far as I'm concerned, is a joke. I don't even watch national news anymore. I watch 13 out of Topeka and some of the Topeka stations. But
you said it. That's what
I just don't watch it. CNN, I used to watch a lot of CNN when they had the Gulf Wars and stuff, but they just so one-sided anymore. And you know what gets me? We lived with Obama for 8 years, and I voted for him the first time. And, now we got Trump, and they can't live with it. They can't understand. The guy's the president. Live with it. You got beat. Life ain't always fair. You're not going to win them all.
Yeah, that's what cable news, programs are just in the entertainment business, so they're going to do and say whatever they need to do to get their ratings up, regardless of whether it's fact-based information or not. I totally get it, but just so Kansans are viewing that through the lens that is accurate, that it's just entertainment, that they are selling advertising, basically. So I appreciate your thoughts. Thanks, Kent. If we can.
Hey, I got one question.
Sure.
I was the guy that got called back in Fort Riley. I was in the Army, got called back in Fort Riley in 1961. And there was a guy in Cuba named Fidel that come out of the hills. But they said he wouldn't last very long. And I am all for trading with Cuba. They're 90 miles away. Why? How have we not been able to trade for Cuba for this many years?
Yeah, that's been an ongoing debate here for many years, whether we needed to be mindful of human rights issues and the like, but I think your view is shared by a whole lot of certainly ag producers in the state of Kansas that are desperate for markets for our goods and services. So,
well, China is not great on human rights, and we trade with them. Yeah. And another thing, I think it's a lot better to be friends with Putin than his enemy. And I know you got to run. So that's some of my thoughts.
Thank you so much. Again, this is Lynn Jenkins, your member of Congress. We're hosting a conference call this evening. If you'd like to ask a question, all you have to do is press *3 on your phone, and we'll get you in the queue. If you don't have the interest or the time, you can hang up before you leave. If you'd like to leave us a voice message, if you press 9, that will take you to our voice mailbox. We're also conducting an informal poll this evening for anybody that would like to participate. This is a question I have for you. The Ways and Means Committee, the committee that I serve on recently, had 2 major hearings on tax reform. As we move forward, how do you think we should reform our tax code? Press 1 on your phone if you think we should reform the code to make it simpler and fairer as a means to cut taxes and reduce revenue coming into the federal government. Press 2 if you think the reform should be simple and fair, but only if it does not increase the national debt. Press 3 if you think we should keep the tax code the way it is, and press 4 if you're just not sure. Next in line is Jason. Jason, are you there?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I was just pushing the button to answer your tax code question, and then it booped.
Okay. And where are you this evening?
I am from Leavenworth, Kansas.
From Leavenworth. Okay, and what's on your mind this evening?
Well, speaking of the AHCA from Donald Trump and how pre-existing conditions, as you said earlier, that postpartum wasn't going to be a pre-existing condition, he said that all conditions would be covered, and seeing as how that's going, it's becoming a fact or a case that they will be covered, but they'll only be covered in high-risk pools, which will make covering them almost impossible to pay for, such as people who are survivors of cancer or people with long-suffering, like maybe GERD or other diseases that are like Crohn's. So how do you plan on either making that more affordable or coming at it as a way that people can actually survive and have insurance that they cannot live without?
Jason, just to clarify, in the bill, in Section 137B, I think is the section of the bill, it states that it will not limit access to coverage for individuals with pre-existing conditions. So
yes, but I continued on in saying that high-risk pools will be developed.
Right, and that's why we included an extra $8 billion that will be dedicated to lowering premiums or any out-of-pocket expenses on top of the already $130 billion available to states through the state stability fund. And so, again, I think we've covered that issue adequately in the bill.
If it makes it easier for them to access it, makes it easier for them to actually live on it. I mean, Obamacare is not perfect or actually great, but, if it's something to help them and gives them a way to access their care without costing an arm and a leg.
Yeah, well, that was the intent. Obviously, if you have insurance already, you can keep that. I think the whole here is that the Affordable Care Act is just collapsing under its own weight. Only 1/3 of counties in the whole United States, they just have one insurer in the marketplace. And so what we're attempting to do is save the thing from certain death, and we've taken a good first step. It's not perfect, but that's the good news. It's not going to the president for signature. It went to the Senate, where they will make improvements to the bill. It will be done probably in a more bipartisan way, because they don't have as many Republicans, as a percentage of the body over there. And then it will come back to us. So we're not done yet. Certainly, if you have additional improvements we could make to it, we'd be all ears, and we can give that feedback to the senators.
How can we trust the people who voted to keep their own benefits from Obamacare?
Well, are you talking about members of Congress? Because we voted...
Members of Congress, the people who had voted on the AHCA. They had voted to keep their Obamacare
No, we
coverages.
did. That's the Martha McSally bill that voted to have the exact same health care as everyone else. It was the sidecar bill that went along with the AHCA. So if you're getting information like that, you're being misinformed by someone.
You voted on it 2 times, so.
We voted on what 2 times?
The AHCA repeal and replace. You voted on it 2 times, and you get it through the first time.
No, we didn't vote on it twice. They pulled the bill because we didn't have the votes the first time. So it came to the floor one time, and we voted on it with a sidecar that said, as Congress now is required to be in Obamacare, we will be required to be in whatever is the law of the land. So we always have the same thing that our constituents have. That's kind of the ground rule when you're in Congress. There's no special treatment for members of Congress on any issue, but certainly not health care.
Okay. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Again, this is Lynn Jenkins, your representative of Congress. If you've got a question for us, press *3 on your phone, and we'll get you in the queue to ask a question. If you want to go straight to voicemail before you leave, if you need to run off, just press *9. We're taking a quick poll of anybody that would like to participate in the poll question this evening. Let me give that to you. This is a question. The Ways and Means Committee recently had 2 major hearings on tax reform. As we move forward, I just want to know what you think we should be doing on the tax code. If you could press 1 on your phone if you believe we need to reform the code, make it simpler and fair, but as a means to cut taxes and reduce revenue to the federal government. Press 2 on your phone if you think we should do all that. Cut.
The teleforum operator notified that you wish to ask a question.
Only do it if it does not increase the national debt. Press 3 if you think we should keep the code as it is, and press 4 if you're just not sure. Next in line is Martha. I'm sorry. Martha. I'm sorry. Where are you at this evening?
I'm in Lynn County, Kansas. I'm like 2 miles from Lakeview.
Sure. And what's on your mind this evening?
I want you to tell me how you guys, the Republicans and government, are going to make the Democrats swallow President Trump. Like we tolerated President Obama, they need to get used to the idea of President Trump. I think they're stopping programs and ideas. They are worth to give it a try, like we did Obama. And I think as I hear your people that talk to you over the phone from the couple of times that you have called and done this town meeting, people are misinformed. I wish Congress will get in TV and inform us correctly, because the news outlets are lying. I was a continuous CNN watcher, and then I had to change to another channel. I don't trust anybody now because they lie. I didn't like the President Trump was tweeting so much. I'm not a tweeter. I'm, over 55, so I didn't do Facebook. I didn't do this and that. But I got on the tweet because I want to hear it from him. Because if I hear from everybody else, they'll say the truth, they misinterpret. There seem to be sensitive children. And they get, you see, Miss Waters on TV almost crying, impeach him, and they don't tell us why they're saying that. The comments are coming, and then meanwhile, the North Koreans may be coming. So This is what I'm saying. You guys, I know you have to create, the first ones to have to get along is the Republicans.
Yeah.
Right now we are pumpkins, so please get along. That's all I want from you guys.
Yeah, Martha, I understand your frustration. I don't know that we can force anyone to agree with us, but we can certainly, try to win them over with fact-based information, and that's what's missing in the media these days is just good information. And so I just challenge you all to look for a trusted source of information, and that is not any of the cable news programs, but somebody that you can trust to give you just the facts and let you make up your minds for yourself. That's what I wish everyone could do, rather than relying on some media outlet to think for them or to spin them. And so we'll continue to try to find ways to work together, find the common ground. But we live in a republic where we're all elected here by the same number of people, and majority rules in the Senate. Of course, they have the filibuster that they need to overcome, and so making laws is tough. It was designed by the folks that created this system to be tough. So only good legislation would get signed into law. So we'll keep working on it. Appreciate your interest. Again, Lynn, Jenkins, your member of Congress, we're hosting a conference call. Press *3 if you have a question. Next in line is Carl.
You have already been placed into the question and answer queue. If you wish to be removed from the queue, please press 1 to confirm or 2 to cancel. You have not been removed from the question queue.
And what I say is, I'm middle class, and I really, when I look at the folks that I work with, I do really well. I mean, I've been really blessed. And I guess that part of what I think I do, what I need to do is to pay the taxes so we can have good schools and we can have good roads and we can have, we can help those that may need a hand, sometimes. And I guess I'm struggling with the fact that we keep lowering, and I'm not talking about small business, I'm talking about large corporate, where they're making money. And I have no problem with somebody being a millionaire, but isn't there, for me as a Christian, there's a point at which it goes over the line. How many private jets do you need? And at what point do we as Christians begin to say it's time to help others? And one way to do that is to pay taxes and pay our fair share.
Yeah, I think you hit on an issue that really is one of the main reasons behind tax reform. When you heard the stories several years ago about, I think it was GE that was paying no corporate income tax, and there is a certain fairness issue here. Not that I think life can be fair. I told my kids that since they were 2 years old. Life's not fair. Get over yourself. But the tax code should aim to be as fair as possible, and that's why in our reform that we're working on, we end a lot of the special interest loopholes and just cut it back so that everyone is paying their fair share. But you raise an interesting question as it relates to our religion, because I firmly believe that I don't want the federal government taking away the joy that I get from helping people. I believe that is my job as a Christian, and that's why we should all support our favorite charities and give generously and lead with our heart and not expect the federal government to do it all for us. I want to get my hands dirty helping people. I don't want to pay somebody else to do it. So I think there's a balance here. We need a tax system that pays for the things that we enjoy as a government, the things that are required. The reason, when you pull out your pocket constitution, why you have the federal government, we can't do national security for ourselves. We need our federal government to do that. That's the chief function of the federal government. Building roads and bridges. There's a nexus at the federal level to build infrastructure for interstate commerce. So we need to have enough resources to do those things, pay for the things that we're enjoying today, not send the bill to our kids and grandkids. And that's what we're aiming to do with our tax reform package this year. And so I'd challenge you to go online and check out where we're headed right now. And if you have specific examples short of closing the loopholes and, kind of simplifying what we've done is on the individual side is doubled like the standard deduction exemption write-off. We've made it simpler by taking 7 brackets down to 3 brackets, so it's a lot easier.
Lynn, let me ask you this question. So so if somebody's making $10 million a year, what is their tax bracket?
Well, that's not yet been decided yet, but in the original draft, I think we had 12, 25, and 33. So the 33% bracket would be the highest. And again, I've only supported a plan that is not going to increase the deficit. So there are some that would propose a lower rate, but if you get much lower than that, you start increasing the national debt, which I personally have issue with.
And here's my problem. I understand what you mean as a Christian, but if we're a disciple of Jesus, who's to give away all we have?
Yeah, he doesn't say give it to the federal government. He says you give it away and do good.
But I guess, and the other thing is, if I'm making $1 million a year, and I get taxed 50%, I still have $500,000 a year to spend.
Yeah, I hope you do great things with.
I just struggle because at some point there's no way we as I look at some of the issues we have in our country, and I think part of what we need to be doing is helping with education. It may not be what the people said in the Constitution, when they wrote the Constitution, but we have a different day and age. And I think we have to, the Constitution has to be able to change as times change. And so,
well, I think you might be confused. The chief function of the federal government is like national security infrastructure, that and the safety net. The chief function of the state government is education, and so that would be an issue. You don't want a bureaucrat telling my local educators how to educate my children at our public school. But I think when you get closer to the people at the state level, that is their chief function. If that helps. If you've just joined us, Lynn Jenkins, your member of Congress, hosting a conference call. Press *3 if you've got a question for us. We've got a poll going. Let me give you that one more time if you'd be interested in participating. This is the question that I'd like you to answer if you're so inclined. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee. We've recently had 2 major hearings on tax reform. And I just want to know how you would like to see us move forward. You can press 1 on your phone if you believe in tax reform, moving simpler, fair, but as a means to cut taxes and reduce revenue to the federal government. Press 2 if you think it should be fairer and simpler, but only if it does not increase the national debt. Press 3 if you like the code just the way it is, and press 4 if you're just not sure. Next in line is Steve. Steve, are you there?
Man, sorry, I'm cooking dinner for the family.
No worries. What's for dinner?
Well, kiddo picked out chicken nuggets, and I'm having a burger.
That sounds awesome.
So,
where are you at in the district?
I am in Topeka, Kansas.
In Topeka, all right. And what's on your mind this evening?
Well, man, there's so much going on in our world today. My heart goes out to all of you trying to sort this out, and I understand why there's so much conflict, because it is very confusing. Probably where my head goes first, because I am a licensed clinical specialist social worker in private practice providing mental health. It makes me a small business owner. It makes me very invested in the mental health community. And mental and physical health are very much intertwined. I have a friend that's a doctor who, when talking about something I had read, stating that 70 to 90% of the illnesses people experience are either caused or exacerbated by stress, her response at least. Now, with the current discussion on physical health care, there is that high-risk pool, which was mentioned earlier, and if I'm looking at my numbers right, the proposal was adding $8 billion on top of the $115 billion. My numbers clear? Okay. Now, if you look at the national health expenditures of 2015, which we know things have been going up, not down, the expenses were $3.2 trillion. So all of a sudden, what sounds like a big number, $8 billion plus $115 billion, becomes a small number. And I am very concerned, again, because I have clients that have stopped coming to therapy that I was worried already about could they be a risk to themselves or others, but have lost their coverage or feel like co-pays and other problems are now barriers in them getting the help they need. I also am very concerned as a young parent with a autoimmune disease that was mentioned earlier, Crohn's, and my treatment cost me $10,000 per month. If that cost becomes out of my pocket, all of a sudden my whole income is wiped out. And I would have to choose hospice and leave my 6-year-old son be raised without me in this world.
You raised some great issues, but let me clarify, because I think maybe you don't have all the information to see this in the proper light. The $8 billion, the $130 billion, so $138 billion, is just for the state programs to help in the individual market. That's like less than 10% of the population will be in that. So that's a whole lot of money for less than 10% of the population at the state level. And you would never have...
It sounds like it, unless you have lived in my health conditions or you've seen the impoverished clients I work with.
Right, but that's the problem with Obamacare, is it didn't accomplish the goal of getting everyone covered, and that's why we need to save this program and get everyone covered. And so you should never be without coverage. You shouldn't have that kind of out-of-pocket expense. I mean, that's, again, one of the frustrations with the Obamacare legislation. People's out-of-pocket bankrupted them before their insurance kicked in because so many of the policies were catastrophic. And so that's why this plan is designed to cover all Americans, certainly those with pre-existing conditions. And as long as your son, you don't let the insurance lapse and just go naked, you shouldn't have those kind of out-of-pocket expenses. That's why you have insurance. And
but part of the problem is things do happen in life. And, you know, if there was an unpredictable event, I could be without insurance momentarily, and one laugh is enough to put me in that predicament.
You wouldn't be at risk if it was momentarily. It's well over 60 days that you have to sit there and go naked before anything happens, and then it's just a year before you have an opportunity to get back in.
But if I've been put into a high-risk pool and things continue to get more strict, and being a provider of services, I guarantee you, with the number of audits I get from insurance companies and all the, you've got to have this treatment plan done by this date, you have to have these reviews done. I mean, all the increased making sure that the 3% that have made bad choices and done things that were unethical, either intentionally or unintentionally, the 97% of us are paying for. And so now my job has become harder, my population more in distress, and it seems to be going backwards, not forwards.
We're making it illegal to go without coverage didn't seem to solve the problem.
And I don't disagree with you, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I just do think more conversation needs to happen. I think there are huge gaps, and this is one of our biggest problems, that I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors and wag the dog tactics of distractions to not account for all variables that have to be accounted for to come up with a workable solution.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, we're trying, and we're taking all input, and this debate is not over. If there is something that needs to be addressed, we want to know about it. I mean, it's not like we get out of bed every morning determined to make the healthcare system worse. Our goal is to make it better and to give people some security when it comes to knowing that they're going to have health insurance, especially if they have a pre-existing condition, especially, if they're in a job that is transient where they may have to take their backpack of health insurance and go to another job. We want them to be able to have that flexibility. So don't give up on us. We're still working on it. We're not where we need to be yet, but we're trying very hard to find a solution here for every American to be covered if they want to be covered. And I share your passion on mental health reforms. We were able to pass a bill last Congress that I think did a lot of good things in the mental health field. My bill was included. It was the Health First Aid Act. We're going to continue to get the resources that we need to our mental health facilities, because in Kansas they are suffering, and we appreciate what you do. Thank you for the call. Again, if you've got a question, all you have to do is press *3 on your phone, and we'll get you in the queue. Next is Kenneth.
Yes.
Yes, Kenneth. Where are you calling from?
Garnett. Kansas.
Garnett, and what's on your mind?
I was wondering why we can't get a investigative system into the Social Security disability acts to get some of the people that really don't need it off of it, so there'll be more money left for those that do need it. Like in the case of the individual that was just talking, I presume. Also, on his deal, I experienced some of what he's talking about, as my wife had cancer before, and you need to have the insurance, but I don't think Obamacare. Luckily, it was not enforced whenever she had her cancer. I don't think Obamacare was ever the answer to that. As where I work, the insurance rates went up, and they had to change insurance 3 different times last year.
Yeah, those are some of the issues that Kansans were calling our office about, and so that's why we really are motivated to try to fix this thing and get it right this time, Kenneth. But I appreciate your bringing up the Social Security disability fraud, because that is a serious issue. Every dollar that somebody gets in a fraudulent claim takes money away from somebody who deserves it, needs it, earns it, and so that safety net needs to be preserved for those who really need it, not for those who are just trying to scam the federal government. And it is an issue that our committee is working on. Chairman Sam Johnson is a POW from the war who is just a great American and has taken this on as his passion. And so I'll continue to work with my committee members to try to get something done here in the next, 18 months that will address that issue. So I appreciate you bringing that up as a reminder to get on that.
Yes, one last thing. You didn't have my suggestion for the tax change on your list. Mine is just to go to a straight flat tax for everybody, and I think that would help out on a lot of it.
Yeah, I've always sponsored legislation that's called the Fair Tax, which moves in that direction. We've never had enough support on Capitol Hill to, get it out of committee, much less across the floor. But we have, at my encouragement, we've had some hearings on it. The more people learn about it, I think the more intrigued they are at it. But this is a step, the reforms we're talking about is a step in that direction. It makes it a flatter code with less special interest and write-offs, just so everyone can feel like they're getting a fair shake out of their tax return, and that their neighbor isn't getting a better deal because they have a CPA who's a little more aggressive than someone else's. So we'll continue to work on that, Kenneth. Thank you so much. Again, if you've got a question for us this evening, we've got just a little bit of time left. You could press *3 on your phone. We'll get you in the queue to ask a question. We're also conducting a poll. If you've not yet participated, you have a few more minutes to do that. The poll question that I just want to know what Kansans are thinking is this. Our Committee on Ways and Means recently had 2 hearings on tax reform. As we move forward, I'm just curious what you all think tax reform should look like. Press 1 on your phone if you think we should, in fact, reform the code and make it simpler and fairer, but as a means to cut taxes and reduce revenue to the federal government. Or press 2 if you think we should do that, but only if it does not increase the national debt. Press 3 if you like the code the way it is, and press 4 if you're just not sure. Is it Lila?
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hi. I'm calling from Topeka.
Topeka, and what's your question?
Well, my understanding is that the first full budget proposal that President Trump initiated lands on your lawmaker desks today, Tuesday morning. They were supposed to be on your desk.
It's here.
Does that really happen? Did you really get a copy of the proposal?
Indeed.
And how does this actually work? He proposes it, then do you representatives vote on it? Do the senators vote on who does what?
Yeah, well, the president's budget is more just kind of a blueprint based on what the administration thinks the priorities should be. Generally, it is not voted on Capitol Hill because we do our own budget. So it could be viewed as a guideline, but I said earlier in the year when we saw what's called the skinny budget, just where they kind of laid out what they were going to include in today's more, detailed budget, was that I would not vote for the president's budget even if it came to the floor of the House, which it doesn't do that unless someone offers it as an alternative. I just think there are too many things in it that I don't support. We are in the process of building our own budget. We'll do our appropriation bills. I look forward to working with my colleagues to craft a responsible budget that actually balances and gets our nation back on the right fiscal path. The power of the purse lies up here with the House and Senate members, not with the president. And so I hope that clarifies that a bit.
So then what's the importance of his presenting a budget? If it's really you Congress people make the actual budget that we live with, or?
Yeah, we do. He has to sign it. But this is just, as a leader, it's his wish list. Obama, I mean, every president we've ever had does one. You know, President Obama's, someone usually offered it as an amendment when we were debating our budget in the House, and I don't know that it ever got more than 2 votes. You know, they're not terribly popular pieces of legislation, and they're not designed to be legislation. They're just designed to be a blueprint, an outline, a guide that signals to the whole nation and the members of the legislative body what their priorities are and what they would like to see happen if they were king for the day. But that's not how the process works.
So how does it finally work?
We have a budget, and the Senate does. The budget is not a document that funds the federal government. It's just I want you to understand the language that we use. The budget is just an outline that the House and the Senate can pass that shows how we would fund the government. But then it's the 12 appropriation bills every year that come through the House, the Senate, are signed by the President that actually fund the government. And generally, how it's supposed to work is you mark your 12 appropriation bills to the budget, but it rarely works that way because the majority party may pass the budget, but need minority votes to pass the appropriation bills. And so a lot of times you have to make concessions to the minority party in order to actually fund the government to keep the thing going. Does that help?
That did, and I have never heard that before, so thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next in line is David.
Hello.
Hey, David, where are you calling this evening?
I live near Topeka, but I farm out near Arlington, Kansas, and my question concerns farming.
Okay.
Are you a member of the Agricultural Committee?
I am not, but we do have our seat back for Kansas. The representative from the big first district out west.
That's Dr. Marshall.
Dr. Marshall is a new member of the House Ag Committee, so he kind of has a front row seat for all of us. But I am on the Trade Subcommittee on Ways and Means, and we deal with a lot of agriculture issues just because of trade. And, of course, I think most people know I'm an old dairy farm gal, so I'm quite familiar with farming.
Well, that's my next question. As a wheat farmer, we need to have more trade. We need to sell more wheat because our commodity prices are abysmal, and it's difficult to make ends meet when wheat's $3 a bushel. It just doesn't work. And one question I had as far as taxes go, this is a local question, so you probably don't have any influence on it, is why can't property taxes be pegged to commodity prices? I mean, my property taxes go up even though my commodity prices go down. So that gap gets wider and wider every doggone year. And at some point, I'm just going to say, forget it, and plant all the grass and forget it.
Yeah, I hear your frustration, and remember, I think you probably know that, the property tax is an issue that you'll want to call your state lawmakers and even your school board members about. That's a local.
Well, that's the problem with the state. But my last question is, do you plan on coming back and running for governor?
I'm coming back. I'm going to give up this gig at the end of this term, but I'm not running for governor. But you're right. The taxes is a state and local issue, and so I'll let you take that up with those folks. But you're spot on the trade issue. Kansas, I think 1 in 5 jobs I read in Kansas depend on international trade, and so we've simply got to invest in, fair trade agreements and open some of these markets up for not only our ag producers, but our manufacturers there in Kansas, and I really am committed to doing that. One of the reasons I asked to be on the trade subcommittee with agriculture and aircraft and manufactured goods as a major part of our economy there in Kansas it's really imperative that we remove some of these barriers in these markets and get our economy rocking and rolling again. So we've had a little bit of a challenge. The administration, that's one thing the Trump administration did not see eye to eye with me on, but I think they're coming around. They have a new United States trade representative that's been up to Capitol Hill. He's visited with us, and I was very encouraged by what he said there. I think it was a week or two ago when we visited with him. I think he's coming around. The president maybe didn't mean he was against expanding trade. He just wanted good trade agreements to be negotiated, which is in fact what we all want. So hopefully we can help you there, David. Okay?
Well, good luck, and I appreciate you taking my call. Thank you.
You bet. Next up is Marilyn.
Hello.
Hi, Marilyn. Where are you calling from?
Holton, Kansas.
Yay, my hometown.
I knew that. Actually, I'm not from here, but we've lived here about going just close to 6 years.
Okay.
So we are Kansans by all of our lives, from Kansas. We lived in New Mexico for a while. I did. My husband's job was there, but we decided his job, he worked for the National Laboratory there in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and his job became very, very stressful. So he figured out a way that with his retirement, I was a hairstylist for 39 years and had no benefits other than the ones I created for myself. So I didn't have a great contribution to our marriage that happened 9 years ago, financially, but we had it figured out how we could retire, and Kansas was an affordable place to live, and it was our roots. But unbeknownst to us, first of all, when healthcare was not a benefit for my husband. So when he retired, we were on COBRA for 18 months, and then no one would insure us after that. And we went for almost a year without any health insurance. And so we are paying now. We both went back to work. My husband works enough to get health insurance at a little company here, and it's $1,700 a month. Are you still there?
Yes, that's hard to afford.
Well, and it was with we finally did get, after Obamacare passed, we had to get insured. They had to insure us, which was one benefit for us. Obamacare would have been so much better, but I think, and I don't mean to be sarcastic when I say this, but it started out to be a lot better program, but it had to get watered down so Congress would pass something, and that's why it's not as great as it could have been. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think it would be great if we could have Medicare for everybody. Then all we have to do is buy, extra insurance for ourselves. That wouldn't be some horrible amount of money. But I know the thing about that is that I've always said this because I've always had to buy my own health insurance all my life, and as a self-employed person, the great and powerful insurance companies of our country retire with billions of dollars. These people make an unbelievable amount of money, and yet we have a high deductible. We have, as I told you, this hideous amount of money. My husband will turn 65 about 8 months before I do, so we'll have to figure out something to do when he can no longer insure me. And our health is good. So there's a real problem there.
Yeah, Marilyn, I hear you, and you know what? We're going to try really hard to get this right this time, and to take that worry away, so that you don't have to worry if you have a pre-existing condition, that you can access a marketplace that the premiums are actually affordable, and that you get the care that you deserve with you in charge. And not the insurance company. So, like I said to some others, don't give up on us yet. That is a work in progress. It's going to take a few more months before we get where we need to be, but we are working every day on that. And we are flat out of time. An hour always goes so quickly. If you're curious about our poll this evening, we had a question about tax reform. This is how it broke down. 27% of you said we need to reform the tax code and make it simpler and fair, and to do that, to cut taxes and reduce the revenue to the federal government. 47% said make it simpler and fair, but do not increase the national debt. 12% like the code the way it is. I've never met anyone that said that to me, but that's interesting. And then 14%, we're just not sure. I do want to thank all of you for hanging in here with us and participating in the call. I'm sorry if I wasn't able to get to your question, but at the end of the call, if you'll hang on just a minute, you'll be able to leave a message, and you can leave your question there, and we can get back to you. Grab a pencil. Let me remind you of our phone numbers, because we're here to work for you every day. If you have some questions, you can always call us here in the D.C. office. It's 202-225-234-5966, or down in our Pittsburgh office, it's 620-231-5966. We also have hours in Independence. If you're over there, you can pop out and see our staff. Just encourage you, if you have questions, and you want to take a look at our website, there's a lot of good information there that might answer the question. It's www.lynnjenkins.house.gov. If you're into social media, you can always keep up on what's going on around here in D.C. on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and those sorts of things. If you'd like our electronic newsletter, just leave me a voicemail with your name and your email address, and we can sign you up for that. Again, just thank you for the opportunity to serve you here. I appreciate you being on the call this evening. Leave a message if we didn't get to your question, and I'll look forward to seeing you all at home maybe this weekend. Take care.